phrasal words. So we have discussed compounds whose relationship is expressed as if their relationship is like that of a syntax. We have relationship in a syntax like verb, object, subject, verb, object, right? For example, in here and restore, we can say that here restore has the structure like the subject and verb or object. The relationship is expressed in this compound is quite different from how it is expressed in syntax, in that the two words appear in the opposite order. The here comes first and the restore comes second. If it were a sentence, it would be the opposite case. We say this substance restore here, not this substance here restores, right? There is a clear difference between compound word structure and sentence structure here. An example of a phrasal word is the noun Jack in the box, right? So it is a phrase, so we can say that it behaves like a phrase or that we find in any clause. Structurally, the appearance of a noun phrase is exactly parallel to the phrase like people in the street or a book on the shelf. So if we are to make plural this Jack in the box, which of the words should be made plural, Jack or box? Similarly, simply it seems that Jack is the noun and in the box is modifying or describing it, as people is the noun and in the street is modifying people, and a book on the shelf, book is a noun and on the shelf is modifying it, right? If we are to make plural, people is already plural. So far as a book on the shelf is concerned, we'll add plural s to book to make it books on the shelf. But what about Jack in the box? Jacks in the box or Jack in the boxes? But there are also complex items that function as word, yet whose internal structure is that of a clause or phrase rather than of a compound. They work like a phrase, right? As we find that phrase is in the phrase that we have just discussed, that book on the shelf, it is the book that is the head word of the phrase, right? Not the shelf. So we find certain complex compounds which behave like that. There is no standard term for these items, so we use phrasal words for such type of phrases which work like clauses or phrases rather than a compound. Though structurally a phrase behaves as a word. Contrast this with another item which is at least as characteristic in meaning and which has superficially similar structure. So let's take this brother-in-law. So which of the noun brother or law is to be made plural? We all know that generally making plural we will add s with the brother, not with law. So it will be brothers-in-law. So this is the contrast with Jack in the box. Can phrases other than noun phrases constitute phrasal verbs? That is the question. So the answer to this question is yes. Adjective examples are dyed in the wool, as in the dyed in the wool Republican, or couldn't care less, in a couldn't care less attitude. So we find them that these constitute phrasal words, right? Syntactically, dyed in the wool looks like an adjective phrase consisting of an adjective modified by a prepositional phrase, just like suitable for the party. So suitable is adjective, for the party is modifying suitable. Devoted to his children, devoted is an adjective and to his children is modifying it. Obviously, these phrases work like adjectives. We see their example. Such a phrase cannot entirely precede the noun it modified. Though we know that adjective comes before or precedes its noun, but phrases like these cannot precede their noun. For example, we say a man devoted to his children, not a devoted to his children man. This is not possible. Therefore, the behavior of dyed in the wool is that of a word rather than of a phrase. So we take them as a word, not as a phrase. As for couldn't, careless, its structure is that of a verb phrase. But again, its behavior is like that of an adjective, as we can have it in the example. Your attitude is even more couldn't care less than hers. So you can see that more than we find, and that means that couldn't care less is used as adjective. It's used in the place of an adjective. So they work as word or any parts of speech. As we see, they are used as noun, and here we see that they are used as adjectives. This seems an appropriate point to mention a small and rather old-fashioned class of lexical items exemplified by Governor General, Attorney General, Court Martial, and Lord Lieutenant or Lieutenant. So if you look at this, Governor General, we can see that it's an adjective, but it has followed the noun. Similarly, Attorney General, has followed attorney, normally General Governor or General Attorney, and similarly other examples. So this is an unusual case of this, in which the adjective follows the noun. How do they form their plural, like attorney generals or attorneys general? So there is a question about making them plural. If you prefer the former, then these items may seem at first like further phrasal words, except for the fact that they differ from normal English noun phrases in having an adjective following the noun rather than preceding it. So the structure of these phrases is unusual. We know that they have come from French language, and in French language the adjective follows the noun. So the same pattern is kept in English language. It seems better therefore to treat them an example of something that we have not so far encountered. This is an endocentric words example, which untypically have their heads on the left rather than having it on the right. We have discussed already that generally the compounds have their heads on the right in English. For example, blackboard. So the board which is black. So the board is the head of the phrase. Whereas in such example, Attorney General, the head is on the left. On the other hand, if you prefer the latter sort of plural, attorneys general, they seem more akin to brothers-in-law, not words but lexicalized phrases. So if we use S with attorneys, so they will similar to brother and brother-in-law, brothers-in-law, and in that case they will become lexicalized phrases. These items are analyzed. The linguists keep on analyzing them, though their structure is unusual. Their structure is different from the usual structure of compounds of English. So while discussing compounds, we come across different types of roots, bases, which are bound, which are free, and when we compare one thing with the other that is usual or that is more frequent in the language, especially English, we find that there are certain exceptions to the rules.